Hi, welcome to a new episode of History in 7 Facts. In this show, we'll explore interesting and intriguing episodes from humanity's past, from the ancient times all the way to the modern era. There has been much debate over how and why Napoleon Bonaparte died, and to this day there are still several theories to explain his death. Today we'll talk about what might be the most likely theory to be true. The French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte dominated European politics for over a decade. He dictated the fate of nations and kneeled countless enemies. But in the end, he died in exile in humble conditions on St. Helena Island. He died on May 5, 1821, 11 minutes before 6 p.m. The next day, an autopsy was performed and the doctors concluded he died of stomach cancer. His health had deteriorated on a constant base for months, and his doctors and servants noted 30 different symptoms that came and went. These were only a few of them: swelling, nausea, diarrhea, constipation, fattening, hair loss, dizziness, irregular pulse, stomach aches, liver aches, bleeding gums, vision loss, hearing loss, and so on. He was coughing a lot and vomiting often, and his level of discomfort is hard to imagine. Desperate, the doctors tried to relieve his digestive tract by administering some laxatives and vomitive medicine. On May the 3rd, they gave him a large dose of calomel, a laxative, but within hours he suffered total muscle paralysis and fell into a coma. He never woke up and died 2 days later. At the time, and for the next 130 years, nobody had any reasons to doubt the results of the autopsy, and most history books stated that Napoleon died of stomach cancer. But one weird habit of the emperor gave modern scientists a major clue as to what really happened. He used to offer his visitors locks of his hair as a souvenir, and since they came from Napoleon, most of them have been kept and safeguarded by each family. The importance of this habit was realized in 1955 by Sten Forchevut when he read the memoirs of Louis Marchand, the emperor's valet. Sten Forchevut noticed some strange things in the memoirs of Marchand. Even though historians agreed that Napoleon died of cancer, there were no specific symptoms mentioned. Furthermore, the emperor gained a lot of weight, which is something that simply doesn't happen if you have stomach cancer. It seems more and more clear that Napoleon's seemingly unrelated symptoms, his frequent recoveries, and his enlarged liver noticed at the autopsy all indicated a completely different diagnostic. Forchevut searched for 20 years for Napoleon's locks of hair and managed to convince each owner to give him a sample. In total, 140 samples were collected and sent to several independent laboratories. The results were exactly what Sten suspected. The person who owned that hair had ingested large quantities of arsenic. There were several theories as to why there was so much arsenic in Napoleon's system. Some said that the arsenic came from the hair oil he used, or that he inhaled arsenic vapors from the wall paint. But a hair sample taken after Napoleon's death doesn't really leave us with many options. The analysis was done using criminal investigation techniques. First of all, if you know when the sample was taken, you can determine when the poison entered the body. The hair is analyzed from root to top, given a fairly accurate timeline. If the poison concentration differs a lot on that timeline, a constant source of the poison, such as paint, is out of the question. Napoleon's hair taken after his death gave scientists data going back 6 months before his death. During this time, the variations in arsenic level were simply outrageous. Normal concentrations in a human being are at about 0.08 parts per million. The emperor's concentrations varied between 2.8 and 51.2 parts per million, over 600 times the normal levels. Stan Forshovud compared these results with the symptoms described in the memoirs per day. They matched perfectly. When Napoleon was feeling sick, arsenic was off the charts. When he was recovering, arsenic levels were low. It's pretty clear that the once ruler of Europe was slowly being poisoned over the period of his exile. This evidence was enough to convince the US Department of Justice, who declared in 1995 that the results indicated arsenic poisoning. Scotland Yard also confirmed this conclusion in 1997. French historians, though, refused to validate any forensic investigation carried out outside the country, but in 2001 these results were accepted by the French authorities after the analysis was carried out at the Louis Pasteur University in Strasbourg. Dr. Pascal Kintz, head of the toxicology department, underlined that Napoleon was exposed to a major and unusual source of arsenic. The slow poisoning of the emperor was the perfect way for the assassin to kill Napoleon. A sudden, obvious assassination would have caused trouble with the Republicans back home, and France couldn't risk another revolution. A slow death could have easily fooled the doctors, who actually did blame cancer for the emperor's poor health. But who was the assassin? The only two people who stayed with Napoleon during his exile and had access to his food and beverages were his valet, Louis Marchand, and a nobleman, Charles Tristan de Montholon. Did one of them have any motives to kill the former ruler? Marchand's loyalty and lack of motives exclude him from this short list of suspects right away. Montholon, however, is a different case. He did have the motives and the possibility to carry out this deed. He disliked Napoleon because he once fired him from a diplomatic position due to an inappropriate marriage. According to some sources, his wife also became Napoleon's lover during his exile on Saint Helena. Montholon was also a royalist, having connections with Louis XVIII of France and his brother, the Duke of d'Artois, and the future King Charles X. The Duke also saved Montholon from prison after he embezzled army funds. This means he could have received order from the royal family to follow Napoleon into exile and kill him. How? He had access to the emperor's wine cellar, so he could have easily added the arsenic to his cup. Arsenic doesn't have any taste or smell, so no one could have discovered what he had done. So it's more than likely that Montholon was the assassin. It's indeed ironic that such an extraordinary life ended in such a pitiful way. Just 10 years prior, he was conquering continents and decided the fates of nations, only to be murdered by one embittered servant who wanted revenge. Thank you for watching this episode of 7 Facts. I hope this was interesting and informative, and maybe it even inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked the video, please thumbs up and subscribe. While you're downstairs, let me know what you think about this video. Please consider visiting my Patreon page and become a patron. The link is in the description. I hope to see you next time. Bye.